Seduction. I knew from the moment he arrived that I would hate him. Keriss gave up his room for him, had the servants move his essential belongings upstairs to a guest room, let this ruin of a cherub sleep in his bed 2 doors away from his office, where he could easily check on him throughout the day. Clearly he was important to him. Barely knew him, but was already making great efforts to let him live. Keep him alive. When I saw the collar, it made a little more sense. His sister's family. He works to save him because he thinks his sister would have wanted it. The cherub was a wreck of skin and bone, his face smashed, bruised and swollen. His own mother would not have recognized him. So vulnerable. A pillow over the face, just for a couple of minutes, would have been enough to extinguish him. When the lander returned from Japan, when it came down, the consul carried him out personally. The guards were passing comment, as they always do. Consul Lord Keriss had held him throughout the journey. I heard him respond to Tor's unspoken question. He said, "I thought he was going to die before we got home." He held him because he thought he was dying. He wanted to give him some last small comfort. I have known him for a long time. I know his fastidiousness, know how little he would have enjoyed holding on to that filthy wretch, stinking of vomit and waste. But his innate kindness overcame that. I have known him to be kind with me, too. It seems a long time ago now. So he carried him personally to his bedroom, changed his own contaminated clothes when he could. In the meantime, he gave the new lieutenant, Lord Theodore, Tor, gave him the responsibility of making him well, if it were at all possible. They even took Talon away from the elder consul, gave the old man another attendant, so this broken cherub could have the best nurse available while he recovered, or while he died, whichever happened. His hair had been hacked brutally short, but I hear they do that shipside, because their ships are infected with disgusting creatures that live in your hair. Bruised and damaged. Almost dead. Almost. In less than a month he was moving around, a gaunt, almost skeletal presence at first, with a huge appetite for food growing day by day. Once I found him in my office using my computer, casually eating my lunch, and using my computer to call his friends. My office lies between the consul's office and his bedroom. I suppose it was not surprising then that Saameron would wander in when I left the door ajar. It was a mistake to tell Keriss. He saw my poor security more clearly than his pet cherub's transgression. Afterwards I took my time to clean the keyboard. Who knew where those hands had been? All over Talon for a start. Little slut, twice his age, at least old enough to be his mother. I challenged her about it, but she dismissed me with disdain. A cherub treating me with disdain. On Hannath she would not have dared to look me in the eye. I have responsibilities, but no power. I pass on his orders, but it is not me they obey. The more Saameron comes to himself, the more he smiles and makes eye contact with everyone, anyone. You can see he is used to getting his own way through charm alone. He must have been quite beautiful before they started to beat him to death. Else why would he think for one moment that he could buy forgiveness with a mere smile? The arrogant little shit. The elder consul certainly seems taken with him. The old man is damaged and has forgotten all propriety. I remember what he was like on the Samsa, Strong, decisive, honourable. Now he is a muttering old fool who likes to put his hands on a pretty boy and reminisces about the days when he would have enjoyed that body. He forgets entirely that we are free now. Treats us all as slaves, with generous curiosity as he always did, but as slaves. When he asked Saameron if he were trained, if he knew how to use that pretty mouth, I held my breath. The Keriss was a trained fighter, trained by the Nadiv aboard the Vengeance. Many like him would have killed the old man for speaking this way. But he smiled and said, "Yes, sir," and clearly did not take any offence with the damaged old fool. My small fantasy of Saameron killing him, and then being ejected from the enclave, that died in a moment. And of course, Tor was there to explain that he was hurt in the crash, and his words were not to be taken to heart. The Keriss's golden eyes watched the old man walk away with obvious compassion. I hated him even more. Who has ever seen a Keriss with golden eyes? His hair is curly, his skin is the wrong shade of blue, and he is too tall. Who knows what seed went into producing this mongrel? The humans, of course, do not see this. They find him beautiful, if the news items I scan each day are to be believed. One of the kitchen staff spent her wages on a hard copy of a movie, a film, a fictional entertainment that humans enjoy, encoded on a silver disc. This movie is called The Vengeance. It tells the story of a Keriss body slave who is lifted and goes to live and fight on a Nadiv ship of war. This curly-haired crossbreed is the main character, the hero, a Havarian for simple-minded humans. It is playing all day. Somewhere in the enclave at any given time, it is playing. I watched it at last because it is so hard to avoid. You would think it was obvious. This is fiction. The hero dies. Saameron, the hero of the Vengeance, dies. Yet here he is, limping around the enclave, with the half-witted Keriss servants gazing after him, as if Havarian himself were visiting in secret. I struggle to control my contempt. He is clearly shopping for an owner. It is so obvious. I'm trained myself. I know how this works. When I learned that he had taken a knife from the kitchen, when I reported it to Keriss, he started quoting Havarian, "I am no danger to any man who wishes me no ill," complete with the traditional hand gestures. He admits cheerfully that he knows the entire saga. Years of training, if he is telling the truth. A monumental task. Still, I think I believe it. The Keriss, who never developed a written language, are very skilled at memorizing. It may be true. What the fuck? Havarian! I had almost forgotten that tired old tale existed. Keriss likes to hold on to anything that belongs to the Hannath culture. His orchard of Hannath apples, his collection of Hannath horses. He even owns a Tegger board and a Shen, though he doesn't play either. He was charmed by Saameron, and delighted at the idea of hearing Havarian again. Like me, Tor loathes it. I almost found myself liking him a little. Almost. Saameron often walks around naked so that we can all admire him, including the juvenile tattoo down his spine. Vengeance, with an error in the glyphs. A small one, perhaps, but still. Who tattoos a word he cannot spell onto his skin for all time? Not that one should expect more from a Keriss. I have never met one who could read. He walks away bare from the swimming pool and smiles and chats to anyone who will talk to him. Back home, back on Hannath, this would not have been unusual behaviour for a Kerip. But this is not Hannath. It only looks like it. Perhaps he does it for Keriss's benefit. The consul clearly enjoys watching him, likes to touch him when he has an excuse. I heard from one of the attendants that he was in the steam showers after the polo match, himself and a dozen sweating naked Hannath, and found himself trapped between Tor and the consul. Almost got what he keeps asking for. A pity. Apparently his insides are so wrecked that there is a chance he would bleed to death. So close. He laughs all the time for no reason. I heard him making fun of my ears. One of my parents was Nadiv. They are Nadiv ears, that's all. Well, perhaps parent is not the right word. I never knew either of them. They probably didn't know each other, except in the physical sense, temporarily. For as long as it takes a man who is drugged to fuck a woman who is strapped down. I tried to slap his face, but he blocked me in a moment. It is easy to forget that this grinning fool was a trained fighter. This amiable act that he puts on encourages you to forget that. He swore that I had misheard, that he was joking about his own ears. Liar! Of course his friend Tor was there to protect him. When at last Keriss brought him to his bed, I was dismissed with a soft, "I shall not need you tonight." Of course not. He had finally seduced his new toy. Or he had been seduced. Hard to tell. His room began to stink of sweat and sex. I stayed away as much as I could. The atmosphere in there made my head swim. The Havarian performance was good. Of course it was. He sang a duet with one of the gardeners. Another surprise. Who knew that old man could sing? A love song between two soldiers, one older, one younger. The elder dies, and the young one mourns his loss. Only in Havarian would the Hannath tolerate such a tale. Doubtless the hero of the vengeance chose this piece with care. I saw Keriss's eyes shining as he watched. He's a little in love, I think. This morning they stayed in his bed so long that I had the task of going in there, of telling him that the Nadiv delegation were waiting to see him. He does not make anyone wait. He treats everyone with courtesy. He was breaking his own rules for this broken mongrel. Gods, I hate him. I wish he had died. Perhaps it is not too late. It has been too long now. The kitchen staff had a lot to say when I left. I was unwise, ungrateful. They always have a lot to say about everything. They chatter like birds. They know everything. They're charmed by Saameron. They already see how much I loathe him, and they wonder why. They do not know. They will never know that when I left, I was pregnant. Hannath do not tolerate half-breed bastards. I loved him, Keriss, loved him completely. But I did not want my child to die. His child. Not at his hands. I could not bear it. So I left. Life outside the enclave was worse. than I could possibly have imagined. Soon I was injured. I lost the child anyway. I needed help, so I came back. As the kitchen staff would say, I came crawling back. He was gentle with me because I was hurt, but he never again looked at me the way he used to. I had betrayed his trust by leaving, and the Hannath do not like to share their toys. So I became his assistant, while he took one lover after another. I stood quietly aside and watched him amuse himself. I did not weep. I retched sometimes, but only when I was alone. From time to time I wonder if I made the right decision. Would he really have killed the child? Certainly that was what would have happened on Hannath. Perhaps it would have been different here. Perhaps he would have allowed me to bear it, let it live. I will never know. I can never tell him. I know that if I ask him, he will tell me the truth. He will say, yes, I would have ended it, and I will hate him. Or, no, he would have let it live, and he will hate me. I cannot bear the thought of either one. Even his indifference is better than that.